Welcome to CSPC 2021. I'm Jenna Hutchen, and today I'll be interviewing Angela Zhou. Angela, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
You are currently the program's co-chair here at CSPC. Can you tell me a little bit about what that means?
Yeah, so the program committee is the committee of volunteers at the CSPC who are responsible for coordinating all the content for the annual conference. So that includes coordinating the call for panel proposals, additionally the internal and the external review processes, which is fun because that means my co-chair Naomi and myself get to read all the panel submissions, and we together with our team of volunteers decide which panels to invite to the conference and to make sure that they all meet conference objectives. So when these panels are invited and they accept, we also act as the liaison between the CSPC and the panels. And what that means is we're basically the point person. Each volunteer is assigned to a different panel. So we'll collect all the information necessary for the conference, as well as answer any questions and concerns and just make sure that the panels are successfully delivered at the event during the week of the conference. So there's a great team of volunteers that are working tirelessly to make sure that the conference runs smoothly.
Wow, that's such a big thing to tackle as one of the co-chairs.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun.
Oh, amazing. So how long have you been volunteering with CSPC, and what has that been like for you?
This would be my fourth conference. This is the second virtual conference, and unfortunately it really isn't the same. But it's still, you know, a great event, and it has been a worthwhile experience, which is why I continue to volunteer. When I started volunteering, I was with the grant writing committee, which I chaired for a little bit, and now I've moved on to program. And the program committee really is a great way to be exposed to all the different components and organizations that are part of the Canadian science policy ecosystem. And on top of that, you know, you get to work with really great people. The volunteers at the CSPC are very passionate people who are at all stages of their career, who are from all different sectors, and you learn a lot from them as well. And they're always very generous to talk to you about their career paths and what they do. So it's been a great experience. Mehrdad and Soha at the CSPC office are always super supportive and helpful, and it's just been a great learning experience, and you work with great people.
Yeah, absolutely. With that diversity of experience, you know, having been at the conferences in person and now virtually, coming from grants and now on programs, working with so many different people, what would you say has been the most valuable experience you've had working with CSPC?
I think the most valuable experience has been co-chairing the program committee. And in addition to everything I've just talked about, it is such a CSPC, the conference itself is so big and there's so many moving parts that having co-chaired the committee for, this is my second year, you really do hone a lot of skills and develop a lot of skills that end up being very much advantageous to my own skill and career development. So, you know, making sure that all the components are in place and making sure we meet timelines and deadlines. You do get that project management experience a little bit from working on this committee, and also the leadership skills of managing and working with a team. And additionally, you gain a lot of communication skills because you're dealing with the committee, you're working with the committee, you're working with the CSPC office, you're working with the events team, as well as all the panel organizers that you're liaising with, that you learn a lot about communicating effectively and efficiently with a diversity of people who are all working towards the same goal. So it definitely has been a valuable experience in my own skill and career development.
Oh, absolutely. With all of that you've grown, how do you think the CSPC is impacting the next generation of scientists and policy decision makers, knowing that you yourself are kind of still are part of that next generation?
Yeah, I mean, the CSPC, you know, is and has been a great forum for people of all sorts of different sectors and background to come together to discuss ideas. And that involves senior as well as early career scientists and decision makers as well. So I think for people who get to participate in the conference on the panels themselves, it's definitely a great exposure and a great experience. I think, myself, I had just graduated from my PhD when I first volunteered with CSPC. My very first CSPC conference was great in just being exposed to all the different things that are out there. And on top of that, also networking, which really isn't the same now virtually, but in person, you're in the same room with all of these people, and you really learn a lot about what's out there. And on top of that, you talk to people who can potentially be mentors. So I think in that, as well as volunteering for CSPC and all the people you get to work with, it does impact the next generation of scientists and decision makers, just having all these people in the same room.
Since you've been volunteering with the CSPC for so long as well, have you seen a change in how the science policy interface is discussed?
I think that's a great question. And I was just talking to my co-chair, Naomi, about this the other day. I'm personally not in science policy in terms of my professional life. But just from what I've seen at the conference, Naomi and I were discussing about how it seems like year after year, there's a greater awareness of the need for policy and science to intersect in order to advance good science policy. And especially right now during the pandemic, we definitely see a lot more of that. Year after year, also, there's a bigger contingency of international speakers. And that's great because you get such a global perspective at the conference, especially since, more and more, a lot of issues that are being discussed have global repercussions, especially with pandemic recovery and climate change and oceans and topics like that. So I find every year the conference grows, and it is very much reflective also of a growing diversity in thought and experiences that is incredibly valuable to the discussion.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that the virtual format over the last 2 years has helped with that growth at all?
I think so. I mean, it's it would be nice to see people in person, but you have such a bigger reach when it comes to virtual events. Especially since, we've been, as when we were trying to schedule panels for the conference, there was a lot of shuffling with like, well, so-and-so has to get up at 5 a.m. to be at this conference because they're halfway around the world. That's a lot easier if it's just a matter of them setting an alarm and being up for the conference rather than having to book an airplane and travel and everything. So I do think there are valuable aspects also in terms of the reach with a virtual conference.
Mm-hmm. You've already mentioned that volunteering with CSPC helped you develop a lot of skills that you use in your current career. How would you say they've really helped you, or how has CSPC prepared you for your current career?
Yeah, so my background is I did my PhD in immunology, graduated sort of feeling like I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I still feel like that all the time. And so I freelanced a little bit with a biologics company before currently landing my current role, which is as a research administrator for the Precision Medicine Initiative, or PRIME, at UofT. So PRIME, very much our aim is to align research efforts across the university's investigators in the natural, the biological, and the applied sciences towards therapeutic development. And in my role, I support a diversity of programs that PRIME has in supporting investigators as well as their trainees. And I know when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, what was really valuable with CSPC is that it really broadens your perspective of what's out there. And it really helped me find my way into kind of knowing and understanding that there are all of these different groups and players that are out there that support science and innovation. And I mean, I don't know career-wise where I would go after this, but I do think, continued involvement with CSPC will continue to expose me to different things and help me understand what is out there. So yeah, I do think that broadened perspective is definitely very valuable.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. And with that, I will say thank you so much for sharing your time with me. And I hope to see you, I guess, virtually at the conference this year.
Thank you so much, and the same to
Thank
you.